Holy cow. What's up, guys? Tyson Compton here with Milestone Group and the Insiders of Omaha podcast. We have a sweet treat for you today, so I can't wait for you guys to get into this. I am honored to interview my best friend, a friend for, almost 15 years now from the Marine Corps. We are brothers from another mother. We share the same birthday, date, and year, and we've had a ton of experiences and stories that we will not get into in this podcast, maybe down the road, but we get to interview somebody that I look up to immensely. He is not from Omaha, but he is an adopted son of the city and an adopted brother to my family. And I am excited for you guys to get an inside look of one unique individual that I truly respect and have just an adoration for. Everything he's done, accomplished, overcome, and also what he will continue to do, and how big he lives life, how big he loves, and how much he wants to succeed and be the best version of himself. So get ready for an awesome podcast today with Alex Puente, the one and only from New Orleans, Louisiana, representing LSU. Go Tigers tonight in the College World Series. Remember, this is a podcast that we fully fund ourselves for our real estate business, bringing you great content, how to be a better version of yourself, business, life, what have you. So click the like and subscribe button below. Now, I can't wait for you to get into this and check this out. We'd love you to send us some comments on what your thoughts are on this, but this is going to be a great session, and I can't wait for you to hear. Have a great day. See you guys. LSU, are they going to make it? They're making they won. I was like, he's been here for long stints of time, too. It hasn't been just like, there's been a lot of weekends, but you've been here for a good bit now, seeing kind of the full gamut. What has been your favorite parts of Omaha that you've seen?
Well, obviously the people,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, you're like a brother to me,
Yep.
And then your parents, like a second set of parents.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we can start saying names.
Oh, yeah. You can drop the names. Oh, yeah. You're good.
Yeah. Herb and Pat, just salt of the earth people. And I feel like, especially at a time in my life when, my parents we were kind of going through that phase where you rotate from child to parent, and they definitely were people I confided in, but brother and sister, it's just, it's always been great coming here. Surprisingly, I really like the food in Omaha, not surprisingly, but I'm from New Orleans, and so that's where I live now. And, coming from there, people rave about the food there, and it's great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, first stop at the airport, I was like, hey, Donna Millie's,
man.
I need a Frenchie.
Yeah, she's Frenchie.
That's it. But also, just steak is way better here, just meat across the board. So, just stack it up. And now the College World Series, my first experience.
And this has actually been probably my most involved experience College World Series. Every time I've been to a game here or there, but following a team and then also going to more than one game. This will be a second game we go to tonight. This is kind of interesting. This is our first podcast from somebody not from Omaha, I think, right, Dana? Everybody else has been from Omaha, so it's been kind of cool. Unfortunately, Christian can't be here because he's had a family emergency to take care of. But kind of getting into the nuts and bolts, being a little non-traditional podcast here. So for those of you who don't know, Alex and I have been friends for, 2009. So we're looking at, 14 years. And we just had a really interesting conversation. I thought this was interesting. You had mentioned, I think it was when I was down in New Orleans, like for as long and as close as we've been, we actually haven't spent that much time overlapping in places other than the Marine Corps. And that was only during training for a year and a half. It's been a lot of long distance friendship. Would you elaborate on that? Well, how does that work when you're working through that?
So that is interesting because you're right. We have not spent a ton of time together. I guess just for long periods. Mm-hmm. And I think just as you get older, you kind of go through different phases of your life, right? Mm-hmm. I'm probably only friends with a couple people from high school and stay in touch with. Yep. Same thing with college, and then the Marine Corps. And you just get to those different phases and, people are on their own path. Yeah. I think for you and I, we've grown through those different phases of life. And even if we haven't been there at the same time, that bond, I think, kind of supersedes whichever phase. If that makes any sense.
No, I think it does. I think it does too. And I think it's almost a little bit of a trend from an outsider looking in. You get some other friends that have similar paths where you guys are still close, but haven't really, like your buddy in Mexico.
Sure.
You guys had that. You had, Copa and some of those guys that were in the Marine Corps you're still friends with. But I think you've done a really good job, I think, to maybe you haven't given yourself enough credit of staying in touch with some guys on that level too.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I think too, it's especially friends that I've made, like, since like in college and even afterwards, it seems like we could go long periods of time and not talk and make a phone call. And it's, hey brother, what's up? And you catching up and that goodwill and that love is still there.
Yeah.
Whereas, you and I, we talk multiple times a week.
Multiple times a week.
And I think technology allows us to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure people back in the day was handwritten letters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom says she still has hers, or my dad has the same ones written when he was in the service, and she'd write them all the time. It's kind of funny. So one thing that's kind of nice is that you are in the real estate space as well. What are you doing these days in the real estate space? You want to explain that, kind of what your world is like?
Sure. So back May 2020, kind of the start of COVID, had some big life-changing events that I, was working through, coming out of a divorce, was living in West Virginia. And that was a place I was actually there for the second time in my life. I'd gone to college there, on a football scholarship, and I really enjoyed my time, but, enjoyed it so much, I decided to go back.
Right.
And, it was also my first, career outside the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So marriage, new corporate job, and, coming off of losing a parent as well. So 2020 was, it was a rough year for everybody. Everyone's got their own story. I'll throw mine right there with them. And, kind of making that 2 millimeter shift and focus, not being like, hey, I'm just going to take this and curl up in a ball and, kind of, just
which you want to do sometimes. You feel like this is going to go away. I want to.
It could definitely, it's easy, decided
for a bit at least.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I was Tyson's crushing it. And he had transitioned out of the Marine Corps a few years before I did. And so had to, do that civilian job search.
Yeah.
And go through those grinds and keep blaze that trail, and almost like a second child. I got to come in behind and just like he ate up all the flack, and I was able to smooth slide in there and just kind of reap the rewards of what he had sown. And so you had connected me with a couple real estate investors here in town, and I was at that point where I was like, hey, do I want to do a W-2 corporate job that I just came out of, or do I want to go into business for myself? And met some good guys up here that you connected me to, started a real estate investment company. And I basically took their playbook from Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska, and implemented it down in New Orleans.
So let's back up a little bit. I think it's really, really interesting. I think people can really relate to this, or at least get a lot out of it. Talk about the decision point that you had coming out of West Virginia. So you had just finished. So start back when you went to grad school and kind of buzz through that, and talk about what happened once you made a decision to go kind of the uncharted path, the less traveled path of being self-employed business owner.
Yeah. So grad school. So I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and I had some unicorn jobs. I'm sure we can get to that at some point, but I was at a point where I feel like I had peaked in the Marine Corps, had outgrown it, wanted to, I was in my early 30s, and I wanted to, have a vote in, where I lived and what I did for a living, and start a family. And, I felt like that was really difficult for me to try to do in the Marine Corps. Right. It'd be easier in the civilian sector. And so was able to get into a top business school. I got my MBA.
Go Dukies.
Go Dukies. And during that time I hadn't set a goal. Yeah. Hey, this is what I'm going to business school for.
Interesting.
And then what's that going to look like after business? Like, what kind of job do I want to do?
Right.
And I kind of defaulted to like, I'll just go be a consultant.
Right. Because that's pretty common, especially for military guys.
Yeah, big time.
Big time. Yeah. And that's like consulting with other like Fortune 500 or larger companies that hire third-party consulting companies.
Yeah,
right?
And you'll just hop on with consultant, and then maybe one of my clients would exactly. Yeah. And so, and because of that, that's kind of what I did, and during that time, I think also I was directionless when it came to relationships. I got out of the Marine Corps. I was like, hey, I want to start a family.
Yeah.
And so, was in a position where I wasn't really I don't really knew what I was looking for. Yeah. Other than just like, hey, I want, to start a family. And because of that, fell back into a relationship of comfort, I think. Yeah. you know, and then because of that, I think I'm naturally a fixer. There's a situation there that I felt that, hey, I want, you know, let me help. How can I help?
Yeah.
And quickly went down a path and committed to something that, you know, hashtag no regrets, you know, but definitely learning experience.
And you were working on what? So after business school, you worked on what kind of sector?
So I was actually waste management.
Yeah. Right.
So I worked for a company called Republic Services. They're actually the second largest company in the U.S. behind waste management, their biggest competitor, living in middle of nowhere, West Virginia.
And talk about an eye-opening experience where you said like, hey, wow, I got into this having no idea really what the underlying world was like in that industry. You know, I remember you were talking about how, you know, I'd go on the routes to kind of learn these guys and would jump on the truck with these guys for a few weeks and like learn. Like it's just kind of a different set of world, a different world.
It's crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. Like at that point, you know, I relocate to West Virginia. Only been there for maybe 6 months. You know, bought a house, got my corporate job, which basically was the Marine Corps with no guns.
Yeah,
better haircuts.
Better haircuts and a little more freedom on the weekend.
Really, man. And so, you know, and this is in February of 2019. And I mean, you talk about that time in West Virginia, it's a lot of snow on the ground. You know, I'm going to call them mountains, but for West Virginia, they're never mountains.
Foothills, stuff like that.
And now I'm in charge of a hauling division and also a post dump site or collection site. Which there's so many things that happen in the world when we're asleep. Let me just tell you right now that support the American dream, if you will.
What did you think kind of came first of recognizing maybe I need to pivot? Was it either jump too fast into some relationship stuff, or was I jump too fast in profession and one kind of ebbed off the other, or they kind of happened simultaneously?
I think I recognized professionionally first, and then the relationship, you know, quickly followed. On the relationship side, I just think I can't speak for my ex-wife, but basically I think I was running from things. And didn't know what I wanted. And trying to fill a void. And so on the professional side, though, I think it was quickly realizing like the things I didn't like about the Marine Corps, the rigid framework, you know, things like that. And I was just like, these are the confines. This is what I felt like I outgrew. And I just basically signed into that agreement again, but just not in the military. I
think what's interesting, you know, kind of we've talked before, we went into, Alex and I both had very, very similar paths through our upbringing, even into college. Alex played college football. I played college football, both at small schools, different parts of the country. And then we both got jobs after college for about a year. And we're like, this is miserable. Like, this is not for us. And these were good jobs, all intents and purposes. But then realized we wanted some like framework and structure but more importantly, wanted something way bigger than ourselves to go do. Wanted something to fight for, you know, wanted to be part of a cause that we believed in. And Alex's brother was in the Marine Corps, and he saw him graduate from boot camp. It was a pretty special moment. And then, lo and behold, you know, 2 years later, goes and visits or goes in the Marine Corps, and we meet there. And that, you know, the vision that we had to go in the Marine Corps provides us direction, or anybody that kind of makes that decision, I think, for a certain part of their life. Like, you can continue down that path, but it's only if your vision stays consistent with it. And then, like you said, hey, kind of outgrew. There's some plateauing. There's some government or like political issues inside the construct of a military organization that you have to navigate. And you're like, okay, I'm ready for something different. And the one thing I noticed that I kind of go through is like that starts to happen kind of almost in segments through your own history of your life. So like, let's say college, you go to college, do that thing, and then what? And then it's like trying to be an adult. And then things happen, you know, we're going to get married, and you kind of go through the standard operating procedure of the stations of life. Well, I think you and I have talked enough times where we're always like, man, constantly almost like reevaluating that, where it's not trying to stay in not creating a rut, but developing a path, like two different mental states. I think you're trying to develop a path of maximizing ourselves, our potential, and then and how we can give back and bring people with us, versus getting in the already pre-constructed rut and thinking it's the path we've built. You know, I think that's really a challenge. What have you seen some triggers or maybe some I don't know if red flags or yellow flags but just some themes of you're like, whoa, I need to slow down. This is not what I my intentions are. This is not what I bargained for. This is not what I'm planning for. I want to take a step back and kind of look at this to evaluate some things, and before I get too far down deep this path or this direction.
Yeah, I think so. I think, experience is the best teacher. And it's something.
It's unfortunate, actually.
It is. And I think as, I'm 37 and, I think it's something as, a young, like early 20s, mid 20s, join the Marine Corps.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're going to conquer the world.
Yeah.
And what do the old guys know? And it's just, you're going to have to walk that path. And at some point it'll hit you. You hope that light bulb goes off.
Yes. You hope it does. Yeah.
And so, I think, hey, recognizing, hey, having an aim point.
Yeah.
Like what are my goals?
Yeah.
What am I going to be doing?
Yeah.
And that's not just like professional goals or or fitness goals.
Yeah.
It's relationship goals. It's what are we aiming for?
Yeah.
And for me, it's to be able to hit it, and that keeps me on track.
Yeah.
I noticed that if I don't constantly remind myself of what those goals are and what am I doing?
Yeah.
For me, I find myself kind of falling off a little bit and, hitting just kind of a less purposeful path.
Sure.
And so just trying to be, faster at recognizing, hey, you're getting soft.
Yeah. Soft.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. What you said, constant, we've heard this a couple times on the podcast, the constant reminder. What does that look like for you? How do you go about reminding yourself of maybe what's important or the vision? What does that look like for you? How do you do that?
How do I build that reminder in?
Yeah.
I think as a little kid, I used to do it. I had no idea.
Okay.
But there was kind of two phrases that were really a constant in my like young life as a child. And that was, attitude is everything.
Yep.
And that was literally written in marker on my bathroom mirror. And then we painted it along the top of the walls, in my bedroom.
Yes.
And then at every baseball cap, I would have, playing sports growing up would be believe it to achieve it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that just came from
an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
Right.
And that came from 9-year-old kid pitch. Like, so the first year of kid pitch, I remember my dad, the season before, we're doing coach pitch, he knew, he's like, hey, you're going to be pitcher and all this. And I told him I wanted to pitch. So, we went and watched some of those baseball games. And we would see kids on the mound and they were pitching and they would get, they'd walk somebody or a kid would hit a home run off of them. And they would be bawling their eyes out on the mound.
Yeah.
And my dad was talking because he recognized that I had the physical
attributes.
Exactly. That I was physically, I had what I needed, but we never really talked about the mental side of that. And that's something that we would work on,
really?
And that was something like that mental toughness.
He would talk to you about it a little bit.
All the time.
Really? Super cool.
Big time. And so that was what I really liked about that development as an athlete. And then you start seeing how that, how you do one thing is how you do all things. It's an extreme saying, but I think
there's a lot of truth to it.
I think there's something to be,
or at least applicable in a lot of areas.
Something to think about. Yeah, definitely get you focus on it. But that's something that, you start seeing it bleeds over. It's like what kind of student am I?
Yeah.
What kind of friend am I? What kind of older brother am I? What kind of son am I? And all that. And so, I think, and I totally forgot your question.
No,
but
how you'd remind yourself. These are
how I remind myself. Yeah. And so now, what it is I've got, kind of my big goal, which is to create, financial freedom through, and generational wealth through real estate.
Yeah.
And, from there it turns into a math problem. Yeah. It's like, hey, that's my goal.
Yep.
And also to build a life with, my partner now, her name is Milady.
Yeah.
And, build a family with her. And so that goal as a single man, when I first started was just the professional and financial goals, but has since grown.
I think that's really cool. It's funny. You had attitudes, everything. I've said the only two things you can ever control are your attitude and effort. Like that's all. That's why I grew up saying that. I've still believed that 100%. I think that in itself, and Dana has been through enough of this too, of recognizing how there's been, Dana, how many people have recognized in a podcast now of our guests of like, at any given moment, you can make a pivot and change. Like a lot of them have brought up that similar theme up. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, even Jeff just said that the other day, at any age, and
I thought, and so I believe that too. A lot of people, I've got a pretty big personality, and sometimes I can come off and not be received very well. But I really truly believe if anybody wants, I I think it gets confused. I feel like that I recognize people have a ton of potential. And I think like Dana and I haven't known each other forever, but I think Dana probably has talents that I would just be in awe, but I know he does. I just know he does. But some people can't even recognize that those talents are so awesome that that actually is a piece that elevates them up. And there's a focus somewhere else that holds them back. I think that I feel like it's something as simple as an uplifting or an optimistic or even just a open-ended mantra to keep that rudder at least in between a left and a right can help so much. I mean, think about 10, 11 years old, a mantra of believe it to achieve it, attitude is everything, has literally kept you, for the most part, on the straight and narrow for over 30 years. I mean, that is decades of reinforcement of like, I say oldie but a goodie. I mean, simpler the better, right? I mean, I think people are the message we tell ourselves matters immensely about which way we're going. I think that's really cool. So when you got out back to like your path of maturation and professionally and mentally, you had a decision point when you graduate, infantry officer, Marine Corps, you're pending on major, just field grade officer. You get out of the Marine Corps, go to business school, graduate from an awesome school, and then you have an opportunity to go work for a really impressive company, Google, or go do this other thing. Talk about like because that's a pretty short amount of time where we had to go one way or the other. And what was going through your mind about, and like, what kind of messages you were receiving from other people and what ultimately made you decide what you wanted to do? Because it was a tough decision.
Sure. Yeah. So coming out of that situation in West Virginia, and losing a parent, taking some L's, taking some big L's, that I needed to, move on from. Yeah. And I definitely had a low point. I'd say probably the lowest point in my life. And it's like, hey, how am I going to respond to this?
Right. Now stop there for a minute.
Sure.
How duration? So so everybody has family history, and sometimes that can wear with you over years and decades. And then sometimes your own personal decisions, you get stuck in some things. How long did you feel like, not saying you fully recovered, but how long did you allow yourself to stay in that kind of that state, before you start to ebb maybe more in and out of it and then try to get all the way out of it, because I feel like sometimes I have a tendency I almost feel like I maybe stay a little too long in those kind of hard shit. You're just like, God, how do I get myself out of the hamster wheel, of that mindset? How long, or like, what did you do to kind of get into action after that?
Well, I think one was, I got help.
Yeah. Sweet.
I think, my godfather, Bill Duncan, called me, I don't know, going through the divorce. Yeah. And was just like, Alex, I don't know all the details of what's going on. Yep. But he's like, you're a great guy. You're a great person. I know you. I know your family. I'm very, Yeah. He's like, I know where you come from. I know the kind of person you are. He's speaking from his own experience of going through, a divorce, and was just like, I know it feels like the end of the world right now, but just realize, hey man, in 12 months, you're going to be okay.
It's awesome.
And it was something that, I remember at the time, but didn't appreciate it. Right. Until later. Yeah. I think it probably only took me a couple months. Yeah. I think because of all the changes that were happening. Yeah. I was kind of forced to get over it quickly. Yeah.
Well, that and then COVID happened too. So then with your mother, there's some lack of closure that was happening too. It's kind of let things hang on a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Of course. And so, I actually left West Virginia, got my car, packed it up. Yep. Sold my house. Yep. Drove here. Yeah. To see you, I think I recognized that being around family and friends and people that love and support me is a good thing. Yeah. And
it's good medicine, right?
Yeah. More lessons learned. Yeah. I came here, and I think something that I recognized in my life that I didn't have I've never had a mentor. I've never had someone to look. I think I was just too stubborn, too immature, too proud. My ego was just way too big. And, not that I didn't know I needed help but just, Hey, man.
Yeah.
And you actually introduced me to a gentleman. His name's Mike Kramer.
Yep.
He's here in Omaha, does quite a bit of investing in real estate
Yep.
with his family. And yeah, we hit it off.
Yep.
And he challenged me.
Yeah.
You know, it was, hey, there's no other W-2 job, and then this
Yep.
isn't a side gig. This is either this or nothing else. Yeah. You know, and that's what we did. Yeah. I had a job offer from Amazon down in New Orleans.
Yep.
And I was like, that's why I went to business school.
Yeah, totally, dude.
You know, to go do that. But I was like, I've basically just done this job.
Yeah.
You know, and I could tell you right now, I'll be good at it.
Yeah.
But I'll be miserable.
Yep.
You know,
one thing I think was interesting for the audience, Alex always used to say the common theme he would say would be burn the boats. Burn the boats.
Right.
And most people are like, burn the boats. What do you mean? He's like, no, man, there's no turning back.
No plan B.
No plan B. And when that happens, I think there's some magic and people that it's survival. You get after it because you know there's no other direction but forward, and you fully commit. And when you fully commit, there is a freedom that surfaces. This freedom allows you to say no to everything you should be saying no to, and you don't realize it. And when you're able to say no to things, your plate is freed up. Your plate is freed up to continue to focus on what is important and what you truly believe in. And in this instance, what we're talking about is somebody can make a decision, and when you make that decision to go forward, you don't care who's coming with you. The people who want to be next to you and want to support that will stay by your side regardless of like if there's radio silence. They're going to trust you for the thick and thin. But the people who don't stick around are probably people that were either it's an unhealthy relationship, maybe not fully ingrained as a relationship that you should have in the first place, and you really start to see who's your people, and that's freeing in itself too. So you have a freedom emotionally by the relationships you're keeping. You have freedom physically by the activities that you're doing and the obligations that you're agreeing to, and then you have a freeing spiritually because now you feel like you're in alignment. You're like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening tomorrow, but I know it's gonna be better than it was yesterday doing that other job or being with those other people, and I think that's really freaking cool. I think. When I remember you mentioned this conversation with me that you had with Mike, and I could see your brain working that you almost didn't want to admit. You're like, he said, I can only do one or the other, one or nothing. I can only do this or it's not going to work. And I remember your face being like, I don't want to admit this, but this is everything I believe. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're like, okay, here we go. And then so you say no to this job. I remember you talking to your dad, and your dad was like, well, I mean, you got to take the Amazon job. I mean, right? Let's take the consistent job.
Well, that was everybody. Yeah. Well, I think to your point, like recognize, then I started off with saying, hey, I had a bunch of L's. I need some wins because I'm going home now, and I'm limping home, and I got my whole family there. Like, hey, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right. And like, I came back, like that's what they're expecting.
Yes.
And I came back like, no, I'm doing this whole new thing, and she's actually 93 today. My grandmother. It's her birthday today.
Yeah.
She was one of the first ones, immigrant from Peru.
Yeah.
Back in the 50s.
Still doesn't speak a ton of English.
Barely. That's a great story how she came. Hopefully I can share that at some point. But she was basically like, Am's all this. And I was like, real estate investing. And it's a very Latin thing. Oh, yeah. But she was not like to my face.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But to everyone else. And like, it all kind of started happening around me, aunts, uncles, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
With the real estate thing. And, and it's something where they just had no concept,
right?
Of they in their minds it was get a job, get a 401k, or get a pension, or get a Roth IRA, and just work, to you're 65 and then retire. Mm-hmm. And what I was doing was not that.
Yeah.
And so I think it was coming from a place of love and concern, but just not from a place of understanding. And
totally.
You have to find like-minded people, and you're one of those people for me because you also do it on yourself, and you know what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I think as an agent, it's your own business.
Yeah,
and there's no one to blame if something doesn't go right,
which is bittersweet.
Yeah,
it's like sometimes you're like, oh shit, I gotta look in the mirror after that, know, and then you have to call yourself to the carpet. I think there's, I think that's another great point is how much honesty you have to have through yourself through that process.
It's you're gonna burn a lot of dead wood off, like with this thing. Like you're gonna get down to, hey, who am I?
Yeah, totally. I think that's really important. Yeah,
but also take some guts, man.
Dude, I think so. Yeah,
it's because you're betting on yourself.
Yeah,
and you're like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
And not just I can do this, but I can crush this.
Yeah, I succeed at this. So fast forward, so you decide to go into business. You take a leap of faith. You bet on numero uno.
Bet on the house.
Bet on the house, right? No pun intended. And you have been doing this now for almost 3 years.
Oh, a little over 3 years. Hit my 3-year mark first week of May.
Yeah, and you had just now, your mentor is no longer a business partner.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So in a good way, not in a separation. Talk about now where you're at today versus when you made the leap. Like, so the growth process that's taken.
Yeah, sure. So I started out doing something called wholesaling.
Yep.
Which basically means finding off-market deals and buying them at deep discounts, and then turning around and selling them for a little bit higher price to a buyer, real estate investor, whether it be a builder or a renovator, and making something called an assignment fee.
Yep.
And I was really successful with that in 2020.
Yep.
And I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, hey, 2021, I was like, I want to start buying some of these houses, some of these deals, and really getting towards that goal of financial freedom and generational wealth. And, for me, 2021 was a much more, we'll call it exploratory year.
Okay.
To where I'd say my focus was a mile wide and an inch deep, because now I go from just, talking to sellers, making offers on investment properties and wholesaling them to like, okay, now I'm turning this into, I'm doing that same function.
Yeah.
And now I'm managing the renovation.
Yeah.
The team that's doing it.
Yeah. Vetting different teams to do it.
Oh,
hiring.
Well, that, and then the actual renovation, the construction itself. And then after that, or during that, actually finding financial backing and permanent financing. So building relationships with lenders at local banks. Yeah. So there's a kind of you've got the first business of wholesaling. You've got the second, which is a construction company, basically. Yeah. This financial arm that's just there. That's just all about relationships. And then once that renovation's done and you put that property on perm financing, let's rent it out.
Yeah.
And cash flow on it. And now it's a property management company. And so it's turned into this beast. And so that first year was exploratory as I'm learning about these things. Yeah. And getting more efficient at it. And so then for me, 2022 was then this, for lack of a better term, exploitive. Because I was taking all this knowledge and experiences and putting it together and, really honing that in. Yeah. Those processes in. And my focus now goes from a mile wide, an inch deep to an inch deep, an inch wide and a mile deep. Yeah. And just I've got a couple moves. Yep. And I do them really well. Yep.
So I hear that, and whatever industry or profession you want to be in, one thing I want to highlight is how dynamic one individual can be to try and do with that focus of building out relationships at different tiers. You have very white collar. You're doing meet and engagements with financial backing, financial support, advice. You have your own internal mentorship, going with your current partners and how that's going. You're building out even more sales skills and more ingenuity, how you diversify not only your portfolio, but your tactics of how you engage with people. And then you're also hiring, firing, interviewing, and vetting people to work for you on the construction side, very blue collar, very high touch with people. I mean, I know you're a very dynamic person, but how do you think you came to that? I mean, where did a lot of that just inherent, or did it take a lot of practice, or a lot of what were you doing? Did it come naturally? How do you work through that?
A lot of help.
A lot of help? That's okay. Like, what does that mean? A lot of help.
Well, one, I think that mentor, my partner here at the time, had a lot of industry experience, construction experience, real estate experience. Cool. So the functionality of it all, that's where I went a lot for my questions and where I got a lot of expertise. I think the actual human side of it, though, the revenues and the relationships, and it's not a real estate business. It's not a construction business. It's a human business. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I feel like things that just being around really good people throughout my life, I've been blessed to go to really good schools and have great teachers and great coaches. I think my parents did a great job, grandparents, and having great friends, growing up, and people like you, like your family. And so I think I've just been blessed, man, to just see what right looks like.
Yeah.
You know, and take the good. Like there was a guy I worked with in the Marine Corps. He always said, take the good, leave the bad from anybody you meet. You know? And for me, it's been a ton of good to take, you know? And so, you know, again, just blessed, man, I think, and being able to just apply that.
Yeah.
And that's been, especially the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Cause you know, you're talking to people all different ages, you know, across the gender, you know, spectrum, or not gender, excuse me, the financial spectrum of like where they're coming from. Yeah. And because of that, I think, that suits me well for rolling up the sleeves and getting in there on the job sites with some of these guys and seeing that, but also being able to talk to commercial lenders, you know, and multi-million-dollar deals and being able to wear different hats.
What has been the biggest learning curve, you think, for you through this so far?
Just got some ice in my mouth. So I'm sorry for the audio on this. I'm going to get through this real quick. Say it one more time. I'm sorry.
Biggest learning curve you've had through the, because I mean, when you bounce in and out so much of different things like we've done, like I feel like you can hit some moments where you're like, God, how am I going to figure this out? You know, Jesus, I don't know where to start, you know?
Yeah, I think as opposed to a function, I think it's more of just patience, you know, understanding that when you're inviting other people into something that you're building, that they might not have the same drive or they're not looking at the same lens that you're looking through. So, you know, one, understanding where someone's coming from and understanding them and their motivation and what drives them. And then figuring out how are we going to work together? How are we going to do this? And what are your goals? And so establishing that, seeing, you know, hey, this is what's worked for me. I think this is a blueprint that you can take and make your own. But I think overall, like it's going to take time. And so expecting it to happen overnight or expecting it to happen as fast as you want it to, is a standard that is going to just set you up for disappointment, I think. And so just being able to, you know, exhibit patience with whatever you're doing with whoever you're working with.
How do you, with patience, how do you come across the people that are under your stewardship or leadership? Like, how do you give them that space, but still maintain enough pressure to keep moving them along then? Because patience is a hard thing, I think, at times. Like, I think patience and perseverance are very similar, but you read the definitions, they're almost identical, but I think they're two completely different mindsets of how you approach things. How do you use that to your advantage with working with so many different people?
Sure. I think similar to how my mentor challenged me, it wasn't, you know, hey, come work for me. It was come work with me. And not even come work with me. It's like, if you want, this is what you want to do. I know the way. You know? And so it's very, I would say comparable to like a hero's journey, very Joseph Campbell-esque. And so for me on that first, when I started my journey, you know, for me it was, hey, I'm standing on a hilltop, you know, and my goals are on the far hilltop. And between me and that, and my goals is this jungle.
You just don't even know.
You know, and so I know that I'm going to have to descend into this jungle and go through it and overcome obstacles, you know, rock climbs and lions and all these, you know what I'm saying? Just all these raging rivers. I'm going to have to go through it, you know, and, you know, the way I look at it for me now with people that want to join my team, it's, you know, they're on that hilltop, they're on their hilltop, you know, and they're going to descend into this jungle and they get in, it's dark, you know, but just in front of them, they see it, you know, campfire. And at that campfire is this person, you know, and for me, I want to be that to them. And they're like, hey, I need to get through here. It's like, listen, you know, I've got the map. I know the way. You're still going to have to do this on your own, but I can guide you. Does that make, I don't know if that makes sense or not, man.
No, I think it does. I think there's a couple of themes in it that I think are worth, in terms of business and life, that you're just, you know, one, help is never far away, but you have to go seek it out at times. It's not going to come find you. And then on top of that, when you do find somebody and they're willing to offer a hand, don't be afraid to take it. And I think that you can provide vivid imagery to what that looks like. For anybody, I think imagery and as vivid as you can make it provides clarity. So the clearer you can paint a picture of challenge and overcoming something, the easier it is for you to do it. And so I think it's cool that when you talk about through a story segment of, or at least an imagery setting of what this looks like and how you want to lead people. And so then therefore, the steps to take through the image. If you can't paint the picture yourself, you can't create what you're trying to get to. It's almost, you can't imagine it. You gotta believe it to achieve it, right? Like going through that is a kind of self-actualization process anyways. And I think people, you've obviously done the work to do that. And it's impressive because it sounds simple and almost hokey, but it's exceptionally relevant and effective.
Definitely. I think there's one more part to this too.
Yeah.
And that's probably gonna be the next thing you just said if I didn't cut you off.
Well, are you just finishing my sentences?
I think something, and this is something that's ingrained, and especially I know myself and obviously you, and I'm sure in most people, whether they acknowledge it or not, or if they're able to get to that point. But I think there's that responsibility to serve. And this isn't, these words that I'm telling you, they're not my words.
Right.
Someone told me this.
Totally. 100%.
This
isn't new.
Yeah.
I'm reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah. And someone helped me. Someone was my guide.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a responsibility to take care of people and to pass that on, and tell me if I'm wrong, man, but I feel like, you're huge into this and how many, chances you've taken on people or things, and risk risked, your livelihood on things, on betting it on people and those things working out,
Yeah. I think one thing I've learned is you can't help somebody who doesn't want to help himself. But you also can't give up on somebody too quickly to not help, to not give your best. So when I say that, that's something that sometimes I ebb and flow with is like, you see something, you see some potential in somebody, and then because they don't want help or they don't want to take it, you're like, I'm out. You discard them, or you discard that relationship, then you move on. I think that's a very, very gray and fine line to walk. Because I still think as somebody who does, one of the fastest way to being rich is serving and having gratitude. You get that through other people, by helping people. And I think when you identify people that have a lot of potential, I think it's also a calling upon you who can recognize that and are dynamic enough to attempt and then hopefully be able to reach that person. For you have to give it some sort of bit of time and effort. And I think that's something that I see really good leaders do. I've seen you talk about the Marine Corps and people you're around to give yourself enough time, grace, and also reflection to find out where you can influence somebody. Not manipulate, influence. And that I think is a very, very special trait because it takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of self-accountability, but you also probably have a tendency to ebb on the side of listening over talking. I have a very bad habit of talking too much or talking at somebody versus with somebody. And so yeah, right. We don't need to talk about this. Is about you today. Okay. We don't need to talk about me. All right. But I think that's really important that people recognize that. And hey, sometimes, like you said, the patience piece for that to come out of somebody takes a while.
That's a light bulb go off.
Right, exactly. So if you're watching this at home, in the comfort of your home. But I think that's really cool. I think that's totally true.
Well, I think to tie that, in a bow, it's their journey.
Yeah, it's not yours.
It's their, and recognizing that it's their journey because we'd all love, hey, like, here's the answer to the test.
Yeah, here you go. It sounds good.
Here you go.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's done. It's like no, it's their journey.
Yeah,
and I think that's where the patient side of it comes into, where it's just like, not allowing my ego to come in, to get in there and be this loud voice, like, oh, you should be tell them what to do and how to do. It's like, this is my standard.
Yeah.
If you want to do business with me or with our company, this is a standard that you need to meet.
I thought something too that you had mentioned before. You're a lot closer with Mike than I am, but I thought he was always really, really good about, instead of telling, he'd just follow up with another question. Like when he mentors, I think he does a really good job of like asking the simple question for you to arrive at something. And I think that's something that really good mentors have the ability to do, is kind of, it's not me, it's you. Well, tell me more about that. Or like, oh, it sounds like you want to do, coming from a place of helping lead you through versus, and then and if you're going to fail somewhere, it's okay. Just get back up, I think that's really important. And I think that does take a lot of patience because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen, and on that same thread, like we have to have enough grace for ourselves, to give ourselves the permission to be a beginner. Like it's okay, to fall down and get back up. I mean, you look at all the challenges, hardships you might come through as an individual through your own life. And we're only 37 years old, not even halfway yet. Thank God, we're still climbing, right? And just pick yourself back up and just keep moving and try it again. I mean,
it just seems like we see the value in challenging ourselves.
Yeah,
and what that does, to do new things.
Oh man,
things that make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And again, we talked earlier. You'd asked me like, what are some of the signals?
Yeah.
I think it's that when I feel like I'm starting to get bored or something.
Yes.
For
sure. Complacency, maybe a little complacency.
100%.
Yeah. I notice that even in my own environments on a really anecdotal level. If I'm getting too routine in where I might be sitting every day, or this route I take to work, or I get to the point where I'm like, I just need to change the scenery. Like literally, I need to make calls from a different room, or I need to be. I'm gonna just go out and go to a different coffee shop. I need a new vibe. I need a new ripple somewhere. I need something, but it helps me. It helps me stay alert. It helps me stay engaged. For myself. That's very true. Recognizing kind of some of those complacent moments where, I never want to feel like I'm failing so slowly. I think I'm succeeding, kind of an idea. Kind of moving on. So now that you are kind of more self-sufficient, you still have a mentor, but it's not a day-to-day interaction with this person. You've kind of graduated, in terms of your own prowess. So what are you looking forward to next? What's on the horizon now? What's that thing the hill down the road, down miles away that you're trying to look at right now?
Sure. I think now what I'm excited about, I think from a relationship standpoint, is this new relationship that I'm in. And I've been in for over a year now. And it's also turned into a business partnership. And I think something that we've been looking into is investing internationally in real estate.
Love that. It's fun.
And looking to head down to the Dominican Republic. And so, kind of in the New Orleans market right now, the challenges that we're seeing, we've still got high sale prices, high interest rates, and also high insurance. Not just 20, 30%.
So some barriers, some hurdles that you won't have to deal with.
Certainly some things that were, that make it tough to have the cash flow that you like on rentals. And so, shifting there, building banking relationships, building relationships with local contractors,
right.
And vendors, and simply taking our model from Louisiana and putting it on the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Do you think that, that's going to provide a whole new set of challenges, but what are some skills or some things that who does Alex need to become to make that to fulfill that kind of journey? What are the things that you're like, hey, I need to get better at this, so that's clear when I go down to this next phase? What are some things that you feel like, hey, I'm recognizing kind of a deficiency, or maybe not as strong as I want to be, and I need that in order to be there, do that?
I don't know, man. Pretty awesome. No, it's
So Alex is very humble for those of you folks that
man, there's so much that I don't know with what we're going to do,
right?
And I think just recognizing quickly, and just saying no, or I don't know, as quickly as possible, as opposed to trying to fake it till you make it type deal.
Because you start getting in the international space, risk goes up because of unknown how banking world works. I'm not there. I'm just curious.
I agree.
Risk can kind of be a little more.
There are, but it's the same thing. It's the jungle.
Yeah.
It's just another trip through.
Yeah.
Because once you hit that hilltop, man, guess what? You got another jungle in front of you.
Yeah.
You got more goals you want to hit.
Right.
And so I think I can take things that I've learned in New Orleans over the last 3 years, and there's certainly things that I can apply.
Yeah.
There's a language barrier.
Yeah, that's obvious, right?
But ultimately, that fear of failure, well, it's there, but it's not a completely new industry,
right?
So there is some experience and expertise that I am bringing to the table that I do feel comfortable with, that I know work.
Yeah.
being able to lean against that, I think helps. And you're able to make that monster, that dragon that you're trying to slay, more manageable.
I think too, something that I've heard you talk about too, or maybe you're more apt to rush into in a good way, is not afraid to, or you're not too stubborn. You're not stubborn enough to do it all on your own. Like, that how important. Hey, there's somebody knows all about this. All this is just you're one conversation away from like kind of getting another door unlocked. You know what I mean?
Too stubborn / lazy.
Yeah.
That's if I want to be honest.
Yeah.
No, it's
right.
I'd love for this to be a motivational video, but I've got to be real.
Yeah.
No, that's right on though. Again, that's experience.
Yeah.
23-year-old me is, I'm going to Genghis Khan it on my own.
Yes. Just,
and conquer the world that way. But quickly learning and realizing that there's easier and better ways to do it.
For sure. What, so as we're kind of future pacing now. If you could have told your 23-year-old self, just pre-Marine Corps, what kind of things would you look back like, gosh, young Alex, you should pull your head out of your, you need to think about these 3 things, or here's an anecdotal piece of advice that's going to serve you well. Or what kind of advice would you give that person?
Don't be an asshole. I grew up, I was the kind of kid that my coaches or my teachers either like loved me or hated me.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
And just so stubborn and so and I feel bad for my parents because neither of them were, I think, as athletically gifted as I was. So they just didn't know, or they weren't as competitive as I was.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they knew what to do with me.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't know whose kid you are, because they couldn't relate in that sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that asking for help, or submitting to a mentor.
Yes.
I think there's an ego side of that. There's a very adolescent side of that, of like submitting to someone else.
Yes.
Thinking like, oh, well, they own me, or they had this power over me. It's just, and that's what I needed. There's lots of people that don't need that type of guidance, but I think I needed to be able to submit. And for me, finally, it happened in the Marine Corps. Like there's this huge organization with this, storied history.
Yep.
And if you think you're going to walk in there and push people around,
got another thing.
Hey, buddy,
wake up call on a heartbeat.
Exactly. And even then, though, within the Marine Corps, I was still arrogant enough and stubborn enough to get myself in positions that my bosses either loved me or they hated me.
Yeah.
So there were those trends.
Themes.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that growth into entrepreneurship, where there was no one to blame or to praise, be like, hey, it's you now,
or put you up or level you up. Like there's nothing to support you underneath other than your own device or
own standards.
Yeah. So
does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of tightening it up. You're just saying, hey, check your ego right away. Right. I think it's healthy to have some ego because it helps give you confidence. But the fact of don't let it be debilitating, in the fact that you can't do it all. And there's more that you don't know that you know than to know what you know. There's far more that you don't know. And there's a humbling process when recognizing that, I think. And I think that's what I'm hearing when you say that. So this is a little bit different question. Going forward, what would you tell 50-year-old Alex? So, hey, you're now, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your older self for some advice to not forget about?
Man, good question. I almost want to defer to producer Dana real quick.
I just turned 50. Yeah, I would answer that question for yourself. I would do that. Don't ask me. Please don't ask me.
Oh, that's interesting. What was your response to that? You just, what did you just say?
Figure out how to answer your question.
Because that's really cool. You said the reason why I think that's really cool is one, you're recognizing it's complete to oneself, I think, that your own journey. Mm-hmm. But I also think you recognize that you could answer that. Like as in you can answer that question. Yeah. I think that's really cool.
Because it goes like that.
Yeah.
Goes like that. And if you don't seem like a guy that's floundering around though. So
yeah,
see if you can answer that question. That's where I'd get.
That's cool. Oh man, kind of got goosebumps thinking about that because I just saw almost a twinkle in Dana's eye too of almost like the last 20 years flashed from his, like, what do I have told myself? What would I tell myself 10 years from now? Because then you're like thinking about these things of like, wow, what kind of lessons I don't want to forget 10 years from now, you know?
I'm blessed to be around great people.
Yeah.
And this room includes that room. There's two people in here with me right now.
Thank you.
I'll tell you that because that stirred me, you know, what that's made me think of is, you know, hey, the clock doesn't stop, you know, make it count.
That's good.
You know, I really do. There's my bumper sticker, leadership for the day.
Yeah.
You know, don't get good tattooed or anything,
No.
but it doesn't make it, you know, as you know, less important. I really do think, I think that's it. You know, it really is. It's not, it's like, hey, work harder. It's like, no, it's not just that, you know, it's, you know, make it count.
Yeah. Live with no regrets.
Well, just the experiences, you know, like, hey, this is my first College World Series, for example.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
go Tigers.
Yeah, go Tigers. And I'm the best LSU fan, the guy that never went to the school.
Yeah,
you know, born and raised in Louisiana, you know, bleed purple and gold, traveled, seen plenty of games. You know, but one of the earliest childhood memories of mine was riding in the car with my dad during the 1993 College World Series. LSU Tigers versus the Miami Hurricanes. And we won with a walk-off home run, you know, down by a run with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't write a better story.
Right.
And I don't know, I just like, there's an incredible core memory.
Yeah.
You know, and I think about all my experiences. Yes. How many times have you come to Omaha? I was like, dude, I don't know, you know, but I tell you what, every time it's a great trip.
Yeah.
Cause I'm gonna be around friends and family, people I love and people that love me. And man, just go make it count. Go make some memories.
Oh, I like that.
You know,
that's good.
But I got to tell you one story.
Okay.
Cause it is, my 93-year-old grandmother's birthday today.
Okay.
We call her Muti.
Same as my mother-in-law. This is great.
That's right. Yeah. Some great people.
Yeah.
So she immigrated to New Orleans from Lima, Peru in like mid 1950s.
Okay.
Barely didn't speak any English, and that not much has changed.
Yeah.
But how she got here is really cool. So my grandfather, my dad's dad, he actually came first from Lima.
Okay.
So he was the youngest of 8.
Okay.
But he had an identical twin brother. And so what happened was my grandfather, he came to New Orleans, was in imports, exports, because there used to be a consulate there.
Okay.
As I understand it. And he came to test out, see if he could make money.
Yeah.
And then if he was able to, he'd send for my grandmother. They weren't married at the time yet. And so because of that, she couldn't qualify for a green card unless they were married. So he had saved money, but not enough to fly back to Lima to get married and come back. So what he did was he mailed his passport back to Lima to my grandmother, and she went to the courthouse with his identical twin brother, and they got married.
But as him.
And they got married, and so she was able to get her green card and then come meet him in New Orleans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is badass. That is cool.
If anyone wants to contact me for the movie rights, we can talk. I'll represent her as an agent there.
You think about how long that would have had to transpire to plan, because there's no computers, little phone technology to cross that, and a lot of writing letters.
I can't even get to, like, I don't know, the store without Waze. You know, without my
gosh. That's so cool. That's super cool. And the rest is history. You know, had son, 2 daughters, right? Your grandma? Yep. So, and have made the Deep South their home ever since. Yeah.
So Muti, happy birthday to you. Yes. I'm sure she'll never see this.
No, but she's going to listen. We're going to make sure we get it in her hands. I can't wait to send it to her. Yeah. We're going to download it on cassette tape so she can listen.
That's right. That's awesome. Running for #1 grandchild. You know.
What was our question?
Yeah, right. I mean, listen. There shouldn't be.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. 1, looking back on our own history, and 2, living without any regrets, making it all count. Thanks a lot for coming, man. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I had no idea what to expect.
I know, it's kind of the point. Love it.
We'll take it from here. Hopefully these good vibes will translate to the Bayou Bengals.
That's right, baby. Go Tigers tonight at the College World Series game 2 for them. So
there it is.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Love it.